Hey!
Hey,
Oh, good morning, guys. Kevin, caught you off guard here. You're
I,
sleeping.
I'm typing. Sorry,
Oh,
the chat's pretty good this morning. So
oh,
I just saw Sanjay's response or thing about stress testing semantic models, and I'd like to hear more.
yeah.
In fact, that's what I'm about to say.
Okay. I was gonna say, Sanjay. Well, Aaron's right.
Okay.
We need more cowbell. I have Amazon up. I almost ordered a cowbell. I just was not fast enough there. So we'll get some cowbell for you. All right. And yes, Sanjay, we might want to I want to know more about that in the future coming on. But we have a guest today.
Hang on, I have a cowbell. I'll be right back.
Oh my. Okay, we've got cowbell. We're gonna get cowbell here. So let's take a moment to welcome Khaled. Right? Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir. You said it right.
Excellent. Khaled, welcome. How the heck are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Good. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. I've been following you on LinkedIn. I've read a number of your social media content and the stuff that you've been put out. Been really sharp. You had a comment yesterday that I just thought was fantastic, and so if people who are friends of the channel may have noticed, we were going to have Nick on. We were talking about like revolutionizing or what was it, radical Power BI
Mhm.
development. Nick had an emergency like flare up, and it was like Nick had to cancel for an issue. Khaled had this brilliant comment. I'm just like, oh, let's make it happen. And Khaled, so thank you very much for hopping on today. We're gonna get into your comment in just a second, but where you want to tell us where you're from, Khaled?
I'm originally from Bangladesh. I was born and raised there. I moved,
Okay,
I've been in, but I've probably spent majority of my adult life in the U.S.
okay, all
Nice.
right.
So
Where are you in the U.S. now?
I'm based out of Houston, Texas. Live
Oh,
west end of Houston.
okay.
The worst end,
The
No,
West.
west end. West
the
end.
west end. Okay, sorry.
Hopefully
Good.
not the worst
Let's
end,
take
but
you to
no.
Houston a little bit, and we'll show you the worst ends.
Yeah. Okay, all right, all
Well,
right.
the easiest way can put it is all the refineries are on the east end,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
all the oil and gas people lives on the west end because of that.
That's funny. So every morning there people are doing the
A
drives,
lot of
right?
people do that, but I mean, because think about, let's not get into it, but yes,
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. We could
there's a
we could spend
significant air quality difference between the west and the east.
Yeah.
we could
Okay.
spend an
All right.
hour on Houston traffic, and in
Okay.
Houston, you spend an hour in traffic every day. So.
But Khalid, where do you work today? Where give us a background where you're at, what you do.
So I'm the principal at Data Crafters. So I think maybe I'll give a little bit background. So first of all, I'm an accidental data professional. I did not go to school to become a data professional. So
I love
the
that.
easiest way I can put it is I spent the first decade as in finance. I was a financial planning analysis director. I'm still a certified management accountant, certified FPSC professional, and all that fun stuff. However, the easiest way I can put it is 2016, my path crossed with Power BI, and
Okay.
that changed the trajectory of my career. So, through a series of accidents, I guess fortunate accidents, I entered the first on the data side. I don't know whether I want to call it dark side or the light side, but I was analyst running 10Ks and stuff like that with the CEOs and whatnot. And then I just got tired of IT telling me 3 years down the road, I'll give you all your data. I was like, has to be a better way. So I think that's where it started, and no good deed goes unpunished. I got dragged into IT, and eventually to become a chief data officer, I had to go back to school at Carnegie Mellon to do the chief data officer certification and whatnot. But I think this was 21. I think I was very lucky. I think from where Power BI was. So I think one of my C-suite came back and said, "Well, few people can say they changed something, but you changed the how a company, entire company worked."
Wow.
Great.
But like I said, I was very lucky in the technology and whatnot. But the team, I was very lucky to have an amazing team,
Oh,
and
that's
that
awesome, man.
Good. That deserves more cowbell.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to this conversation. Before we get into it, want to hit on a few things. You know, please, if we're here for a conversation with you, right? Like the audience, right? Like Khalid, we're happy you're here. We're excited to have that. But like, if you have questions, comments, please post those into the chat. Please prefix it with a Q. We've had nobody spamming the chat, so that's not a problem, but let's just not do that. Make sure if you haven't already that you've liked and subscribed to the channel. And I want to hear our question of the day. This is something we try to do sometimes. We're not great at it, but what advantages or challenges do you see with Fabric and the SMB? Like, I want to just ask the audience this right off the bat, so we can like start to seed and pepper the conversation as we go along. And then second to last bit of housekeeping. Make sure, if you're not already, follow Kevin, myself on LinkedIn and X, and Khalid on LinkedIn as well. Khalid, I don't have your ID queued up, but we'll get it there for you. So, all right.
Sounds good.
And then last thing, if you're going to FabCon and you're a friend of the channel, we're gonna have a best day ever day at FabCon. So if you want to participate in the best day ever, please. We're we've got a whole bunch of people that said we're going to be wearing a t-shirt, best day ever t-shirt. So click on the link, buy a t-shirt. It takes a while to get to you. That's not fast to buy now. I make almost 65 cents on each shirt, so it's like it will really dramatically change my life. So I'd really appreciate it if everyone kicked in 65 cents. They are expensive, so I mean, I'm not really
Maybe they can order it from you, and I'll have a booth, so they can pick it up from my booth if they need.
Well, no, it's all through a third-party shipper. I don't know anything about it, right? But go on there, order it up. I'm at booth 413. Are you gonna be at FabCon too, Khalid?
I am.
Okay, so you'll be able to come and see us all. But watch on social media. We'll be wearing these shirts all one day, and we'd like to get everybody wearing a best day ever shirt so that everyone at FabCon sees how we are having the best day ever working with Fabric. All right. So, and as a community working together. So
have you picked which day this is at FabCon?
The day has not yet been solved, but there's only 3 days, so it will be one of the 3. So
it's either 31st or the 1st. Second is probably the last day.
Right.
Just be careful with that.
If it's on the 1st.
If it's 3 days and if it's going to be the middle day, just be careful with it.
Oh, right. We gotta. First is okay. Second is okay. Awesome. Awesome. But yes, if you're going to FabCon, we will see you guys there. Sorry, I don't have a fabric green. It's just the blues. So we're trying to be blue, happy, right?
Yay.
I might have. I'll see if I can dig it up. I might have a $200 off coupon for FabCon. I'm speaking as well at FabCon, so I'm going to put in the chat if I can find it in time.
I have a $250 off one.
There you go. Chris's one is better. Go for that one.
Yeah, if you won $250 off, Baker Tilly $250 will get you $250 off. All uppercase on the Baker Tilly. You'll save you $200 if you're thinking about going. Okay, so $250. So,
save anything you can.
Right. All right, but we are here and we're talking about Fabric and the SMB. And Kevin had a good comment this morning. Oh crap, where did Kevin's comment go? He said first thing we should do is we should define what is an SMB. And so I went and did that. I went to Copilot. I said, hey Copilot, what is an SMB? And I got back. SMB stands for small medium businesses. They're businesses whose personal numbers or revenue fall below certain limits. Blah 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 blah. Basically, they're saying typically fewer than 500 people and annual revenue ranging from 1 million to 41.5 million. kind of
Okay.
depending upon industry.
Yeah,
That's a
there's
very specific 41.5. But
so this other site, Como Space, kind of came up with something similar, but they put
yeah,
it at 100 employees and or less than 50 million in annual
mm,
revenue.
okay,
Something else came up calling it small and medium enterprises. And then what they listed was, or what was underneath it in this search, is more than 90% of all businesses in the APAC region, so the Asia Pacific region, um, become what they're calling the small medium enterprises, right? So,
mm,
and I don't know what it would be here in the U.S. region, right? But it's quite a it's a big market.
yeah.
A lot of the companies are they're not your Fortune 500, right? Because there's only 500 of those. So yeah,
I think
what
the
do you?
only thing I was gonna add is think about like even for data crafters, we're focused around mid market, right? Small to
Mhm.
mid market, and we don't usually work with. I mean, we try not to, but work with companies over $1 billion in revenue, right?
Yeah.
And you don't realize how many companies that's sitting next door to you that makes a couple of $1 billion in revenue.
Mhm.
Right.
I mean, like it's like sprinkle all over the place. It's a lot more than you would expect.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones that I've worked with fall more into this, less than 50 million. So the ones I've been involved with have been pretty small, but as we're going to get into, I've I've been successful in doing things with them with Fabric pretty easily, and they love it. So you know, so that's kind of our definition. I don't know if there's others in the chat that have come up with anything what they see.
I think that's I think that's a good baseline to start with when we're
Hmm.
talking about who the target audience is here. Now, uh, I'm gonna say my favorite thing about Fabric and why I think Fabric is ideal for the small business solution is because Fabric can be as complex as you need it to be, but should be no more complex than than you need it, right? You should limit it to the complexity, or you could easily limit it to the complexity that you tolerate. Um,
Hmm.
and so that means, depending upon whatever business you're in or whatever, whoever resources you have, be it I've got one guy doing something or a team of like 2 or 3 or whatever, to I've got a team of 6 or 7. You can kind of scale that solution to kind of meet the needs of that specific organization. I think that's a huge advantage. And
It
Khalid, you had
is.
some interesting thoughts on this. Um,
So I
that
think just to piggyback on what you're saying about complexity and simplicity, right? So a company that doesn't even know what a database is, for
Hmm.
them having a central data warehouse is good enough. Single lake house, they are not worrying and dreaming about whether they have the modern data stack with Medallion architecture, right?
Hmm.
And if someone says I mastered Enter Fabric, I would like to see that person, right? Because the part people don't understand, it's impossible to master Fabric as a
mhm,
whole because there are multiple disciplines, multiple tools, right? Whether you're data engineering, data science,
Hmm.
warehousing, BI, real-time analytics, and whatnot, right? So I think you just pick what you need and kind of go run with it, right? The idea is the one of the amazing part of Fabric. It's true for SMB and I mean it actually scales. I mean it's good for small businesses, but it scales regardless what size you are on. Is that you start the basics. Now you want to do something else. You don't have to go spin something else up. Whatever
Right.
you spin up will natively use the same data. You need to use a Python notebook versus a SQL query. You can do it from the same place. You don't have to go redo stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So that, yeah, I mean, and Chewy kind of jumped on this, right? But they know Excel or MS Access, right? And that kind of MS Access came up while we were chatting. But how many times do you start with a small business and they go, yeah, well, we have a database. We keep all our stuff in a database. Well, what is that? Oh, that's this Excel file. That's our database.
Yes.
right.
It's because you're right. I mean, they don't understand the idea of a SQL database or anything else. So
But they're curious now, right? Think about this way, right? Even before they used to be curious, but it was out of their price range.
Mhm.
The cost might not be as much, right? You could get an Azure SQL for $5-10 a month, but the cost of implementation, and this is what I was talking
Right.
about with Chris earlier, that was the cost of getting one of those spun up,
Yeah.
right? And the
What do you
time it
typically
takes.
see? How long does it typically take to, like, if you were going to spin it up outside of Fabric, right? Say the old Azure part, what would you have seen?
So I think the spin up, I think, is like spinning up a Fabric capacity versus Azure SQL capacity. It's not that different. The difference
Mhm.
comes is when is it ready to be used?
Okay.
Yeah.
Configuring security,
Yeah.
configuring networking and whatnot, right? And you're talking about weeks at that point, right? If you
Yeah.
want to be like blocking firewalls, getting it to work with your VPN and all the stuff you want to do, single sign-on and whatnot,
Mhm.
those have gotten better, but not at the scale of Fabric, because Fabric, even though you spin up in Azure, it's in the Power BI tenant. That means it has already the tenant security applied. So think
Right.
about it. If people are going to have one security configured, is their email security, right?
Right.
Right.
So because of it using the Entra ID right off the bat, I mean, you are ahead of the game, right? So from that perspective, security configuration and things like that, workspaces, that technology works. We've been using it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Was it perfect 10 years ago when Power BI came out? No, but we are leveraging the benefit of development in Power BI for 10 years in the same access and security, and we're getting more and more granular.
Yeah. And I think something else to jump onto that, right, is setting up things in Azure, as you kind of pointed out, right? It could be kind of easy to spin it up, right? But then connecting it, getting all the security right and everything is going to take time. But on the worst side of it, how many people just spin it up and then don't look at all that other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, right, and then as you're saying, compare it now to Fabric, you spin it up and all of those other things are just taken care of for you.
So think
Right? You
about
don't
this
have
way, right? A lot of
yeah.
people go with configuration, right? We'll charge you for configuration.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So you should not be paying people for that because it's not value added, right?
Yeah.
The easiest way I can put it is Microsoft was famous for selling you the parts to the Porsche. You got to put your Porsche together.
Hmm.
This
Mhm.
one comes assembled,
Oh, that's a
That's a good
great
line.
analogy.
right?
Well, and honestly, I think that's not just Microsoft. That's all the cloud providers out there. Is you have to buy all the pieces and you have to put them all together before you can get in and drive. Fabric
Mhm.
is that car that's already assembled. You just go in and decide, do you want orange paint on your Porsche or
Mhm.
red paint or black or whatever, gunmetal or whatever your thing is, right? You decide on that. You don't have to decide on the engine, the tires, the doors, the bumpers, all the other stuff, and make sure that they all fit together, right? That's a great call out.
So I think that's kind of one part of the cost. I think the other one I want to talk about maybe is the how accessible the technology is.
Mm-hmm.
Because Fabric between F2 or F64, think about that's the primary distinction on some features.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really different in terms of. So I mean, what's the difference? You don't get Copilot at below F64. Okay, guess it doesn't make a difference. It's not a feature parity like I
Yeah.
don't get Lakehouse or Warehouse. You don't get a direct lake model over 300 million records. How many SMB has
Mhm.
300 million records, right? Large corporation doesn't have that many data,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So from that perspective, the features, the depth of the technology, and the breadth of the technology is amazing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even at F2, right? The reason I say this is a differentiator is because think about as I left corporate and we focus more on the mid market, right?
Mm-hmm.
For them, Power BI Premium is a no-go. They don't want to spend $5,000 a month, right? So
Mhm.
now to orchestrate, and even in Power BI Premium, I would say we didn't have the best orchestration, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could put stuff in data flow, link data flows and whatnot. Data mart was amazing. I'm not sure what's going to happen to that damn thing, but
It's
but
not looking good.
Yeah.
we could not
Long
really
time
do much with it.
previews.
Yeah.
That's the longest preview I think we have, apart from the Spanish language Q&A, I think, on Power BI Desktop.
or the map.
Map
The guy with-
visuals.
yeah,
is,
There you go.
are-
Those two, right?
yeah.
So, but there is a
But,
competition going on, and data marts may end up winning sooner or later. So,
But if you think about for building something Power BI is ready to go, easy to go, and whatnot. But the moment you try to go beyond a couple of reports and you try to scale something, not having a data warehouse or something like that in the back end, it just kept bugging you from scaling,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Versus now we can get Fabric deployed for a couple of $100. I have
Yeah.
customers that are slightly over that, like about they're about 100 million and one range. They have been on Fabric production for over a year at this point,
Yeah.
yeah,
and their
And
cost
that's
is
an
less than
excellent point.
$500.
Yeah.
How? We run it at F4 and only scale up during the ETL engine runs at F64 and works perfectly fine, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I have one
That's a
that
great comment. And honestly, I think one of the things people forget about is the complexity of running all of those different Azure resources, having to manage the scale of those different capacities and to achieve whatever results you're looking for, be it ingestion, be it storage, be it analytics, be it data science, whatever it is you're doing, you'd have to manage all of those independently in order to make that all work and function. If you're a small, medium business, you probably don't have a highly sophisticated cloud uh, uh, architect and engineer
right.
that can manage all of those things dynamically for you.
Chris, there's only people you can count with your fingers that can do that normally, even at large enterprises.
Right.
Yeah, that could
Right.
do it
It's
really
that
well.
guy, that one guy whose whole job is tuning that for a large enterprise. And that guy commands such a huge salary. You have to have such a large deployment in order for that ROI to be there, to have him like, oh, that's a value add if you're a large company. It's not a value add if you're a small company. So you're never going to hire it. You're never going to staff it. You're going to always struggle with wasted spend in any of your cloud providers. And that's what Fabric addresses, right? You manage one resource to cover all of your needs, and you just have to manage that one with your scale and whatever. That
Right. Yeah,
excellent
because
point, Khaled.
right
I think
because
you
what
walked into the next one, Chris. Like if you think about it, this is what I call overhead cost, management cost, like what
Oh,
it costs to manage it,
Mhm.
right? And I think just to summarize the first point we were talking about, the cost, because Fabric Start, it makes it accessible from the OpEx perspective because we get the features at a much lower point. So for like I know about Kevin, right? For us, that's not a discussion anymore,
mhm.
Right.
right? Sometimes it's cheaper for me to deploy Fabric for them, even if they don't need it, because it's cheaper for them for
Right.
us to deploy their Power BI on Fabric because the orchestration is simpler using pipeline
Right.
and whatnot. And one
Yeah.
of my most favorite pattern right now to use Fabric and Pro RPPO, right? Because it doesn't.
Yeah,
You're spot
for
on.
some of them that I've worked with, right? It just kind of like you, as I had a client back when Fabric first became GA, and I started talking to them just before they became GA and convinced them to go this route. It was the first time that they're trying to integrate a lot of their data together. Now, what I've seen with a lot of SMBs is they like to start up with other things that are SaaS products, right? And then to get the data out of those SaaS products and start integrating it together, you usually got to run into something, usually APIs, to get to it. And so, at this one, it was all greenfield. So I started with them going, yeah, we could use those APIs. But I've seen other ones, like we kind of talked about, is they stood up a SQL database and they said, okay, well, how are we going to get data in from this system? Oh, we'll just do whatever, right? We'll add logic apps. Then they run into something that logic apps can't do. And they go, oh, well, I'm going to add ADF and I'm going to add this. And then all of a sudden, their costs are way out of control, right? That's kind of what we're talking about by having the one package with Fabric coming in. You could pick all these different things, and you're not changing your price point at all until you decide I have more that I need more CUs, right? So I just kind of love that for small medium businesses, because when you need to learn the Python part, then you take the time to do that, or you decide to bring in somebody that has those skills. So I think that's kind of where we were also going, right, with that person. You know, how do you grow that person within your team and help them grow or bring in others, right? So it doesn't get unwieldy.
Absolutely. So think about this. Like first point, the technology is very accessible, priced, right? How it starts. Second one, because we can do very fast deployments, right? Cost of deployment has significantly decreased. And the
Yes.
third one that both you and Chris are highlighting now, the cost of ownership.
Yeah.
The cost to manage this has significantly gone down. Think about even when I ran my own department, right? I had more than 24 people in the team globally, right? And if you look at the entire pipeline, you need DBAs, data engineers, again DBAs for optimization, then data modelers and all that, right? So you have that. Forget hiring 10 people; they cannot hire one,
Right.
right? But all that has become SaaS, which also means the cost of managing that has gone down significantly, right? So from that perspective, the total cost of ownership in Fabric, I think, is one of the lowest. I mean, and it's going to be like not like they're like a different ballpark compared to
Yeah.
anybody else right now.
Yeah, and it totally removes this conversation of where you go, you know, I need to add this into our architecture, right? And when you're doing it piece by piece, the first part of the conversation with the management is, okay, can you budget that for me? What's going to increase my cost and everything? But now you go, you know, oh, I need to add in a new notebook, or I need to, you know, we're going to just start using notebooks, or we're going to just start using the warehouse or a lake house. I'm going to add that in. And oh, what does that do for my price? Nothing, right? It's going to fit on this capacity because we could see it. You're only using, you know, 25, 50%, whatever it is. We could see that it fits. And you don't have those price increase costs, conversations until they keep adding enough other stuff that burns up your CUs, right? So
Yeah, so from that perspective, we'll get the case studies out soon enough, right? So we have done a couple of migrations from, let's stick to the same one. We have done migration from Azure to Azure, meaning they have gone from non-Fabric to Fabric, right?
okay.
The cost have gone down by up to 77%.
Wow, really? It'll be interesting to
Remember, it's
see.
like disconnected systems, right?
Yeah.
You're moving things multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
Data is in Delta Parquet. The execution gets faster. You get a lot. So people are trying to solve rocket science, but you don't need that many rockets. We need regular problems, and for
Yeah.
regular problems, Fabric is such an awesome product. I don't remember who mentioned this. Maybe Gopal or one of my friends. He was kind of saying when Microsoft built Fabric, they did not try to figure out the fanciest problem. They asked the customers what they wanted. So it was driven by essentially the primary customer problem. It was not driven by the shiniest thing on the market.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing I really think about it is it's also engineered based off of existing technologies that's been around that we can trust and we know works and operates, right? Like the big new thing that's in Fabric is the UI and how we access the technology. It's not the underlying technology, right? Power BI's been around forever. I mean, dating back to Excel, Power Query, and SSAS, right? Fabric SQL is just Azure SQL, which is just SQL, right? Like, I mean, that goes back. When was the first SQL, Microsoft SQL Server?
Long time ago.
2001 or something like that, right? I mean, all of this tech is rock solid. We're just talking about a new interface that is so easy for people to go in and start to leverage and use. And that's where I'm just blown away by it.
Yeah, and it
I
goes
wanna
back to
kind-
keeping it simple, right? Is if because this tech is not new,
Mhm.
if you have people that are skilled in it, you could start with, you know, a Fabric database or a Fabric data warehouse, and you could use a lot of your T-SQL skills. Do it. Just because Python is there doesn't mean you have to use it, right?
I'm with you. I'm into that because people will be complaining about how Dataflow Gen 2 is costing more in CUs versus like
I've heard that's gotten better. I've seen some numbers saying it's
no. I
gotten
mean,
better
think
too.
about this.
But
Again,
yeah,
people get stuck in the direct cost.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the cost of training all your people on Python? How long is
Yes.
it going to take that?
Right.
Yep.
How many people do you need to do that versus you can leverage your stand like people that's there today, right?
Right.
So I'm pretty sure we're gonna have soon enough. I'm like not this year, a couple of years down the road. Be like, hey, this is in Dataflow Gen 2. Can you convert this to a notebook for me?
Sure.
Right.
Right. But then you've given the
Copilot's gonna be
time.
really good at that.
Yeah.
And this has always been the cost of the compute. We've just been blind to it. Okay, so it's a little slower. And you know what? Maybe it's 16 times slower. So what? You got it done. It's
Mhm.
running and it works. And if it's so bad, bring in one consultant to spend a little bit of time refactoring that one component, right, versus all of your other power queries, right? There's just so many options here.
And the beauty is, whatever was, I think there's two things I want to highlight, right? So I think what Chris was mentioning, the technology, right? Some people complain about Fabric being not being production ready. I don't think it's a fair. I mean, can Microsoft do better? Yes, I will be there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, comparing a product, So I've been, because remember I come from the business world. I was like a finance director, analyst, or whatnot. Even now, people say, "What do I do?" I say analyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're comparing Power BI, which is 10 years old at this point. They want the exact flawless execution
Yeah.
of Fabric of that, which has been in GA. So I think for a product that's less than 2 years old in GA, Fabric does amazing,
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
and
And
I agree. That's an unfair comparison, right? Something that's been, iterated on for 10 years and gotten to this point. You know, I don't think it's an unfair expectation. I think we should always expect everything to be as good as it could be, right? But it's not going to be perfect, and it is just going to get better.
I mean,
Well,
I'll give you my honest experience, right? I tried to do the Fabric thing. The first time was in September, like September. This is like at the Power Platform Conference, right? This is
Mhm.
September. This is before GA, right? In 23.
Okay.
I could not use that damn thing. I
Right.
was frustrated, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the speed they are fixing stuff in Fabric is mind-boggling. Right?
Right.
The deployment and things like they're doing, it is amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
and they learned all that from how they manage Power BI, right? I mean, I agree with you. They seem to get that process down, to get whatever releases, if it's weekly releases, monthly, it's getting so much better of just doing that and taking that same strategy to what they're doing here. It's mind blowing.
No, and Kevin, you're exactly right, and that's something we have to remember, that this is the process, right? Public preview to gather feedback, to fix things, to figure out if this is the proper direction on something. If that
Mhm.
public feedback is good, and it works great, and we get lots of positive feedback, it's functioning, then it goes into GA, and then it goes out, and then we see iterations on that. If that public preview item doesn't get good feedback or doesn't get whatever, it's going to sit in public preview for a while as we gather feedback, as they gather performance, as they deal with whatever back end issues exist, and only then is that going to move forward. So, and they do that in a very rapid, agile way, right? So if it's on the happy path, great, it's going to make that path very quickly. But if it's not, then they're going to keep it in the public preview state for a longer time. And I think the challenge we have is we have an overall platform that's GA with functionality and features that are on it they're not necessarily super clear when they're in public preview and not fully fleshed out yet. I think that's a fair challenge that people are dealing with, right?
Yep, yep. I think one thing I will say, like Datacraft's own story, right? We are a small company, right? We're a young and small company, right? So Datacrafter has been using Fabric for our own analytics for more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured, because for us, we eat our own dog food. Meaning, so I'll give you a simple example of our, say, ERP. For us, we use, for finance and whatnot, we use QuickBooks, right? QuickBooks Online and whatnot. Now, if you think about, and this is the key, there's 2 points I'm going to mention, right? I use Fivetran. I logged in, created a source and a destination, and picked Fabric as a destination. I was done, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went overboard, meaning I figured out logic apps because I need the data once a day.
Right.
My solution cost less than 7 cents a day at that point. Because I only need it for 20 minutes when the data synced, and then Power BI Pro or Premium took the data, and I didn't need the rest of the time. But the reason is, yes, I can get the cost down to less than $5. You don't need to, because even if you did not know how to do all that, if you could just point and shoot, it'll still cost you $200. And that's kind of the game changer for SMB, right? You don't need people like experts to even get started, because the cost is that easy to go try it out.
Right.
Yeah. And as we kind of go back to like the whole data flow part of the conversation, and another point you brought up earlier, but he kind of merged the two together. If data flows helps you get the data, discover some things about the data, and kind of get to that, either your point of failure or your point of revelation, right? Hey, I can do stuff with it. Then use the data flows to get you there faster, right? And kind of in a way, that's what we're saying that Microsoft's doing with how they're doing the preview features and everything else, right? Their process for deploying things, get things out, find the value in it, or find out that it fails faster, right? And then, as you mentioned, that reduces your cost of deployment.
Kevin, let me kind of put it this way, right? People forget the value of time. The most expensive thing in life is time.
Yes.
Yep.
Right? They're worried about the query takes 2 minutes versus 1 minute on a Python script. The part they forget is that with data flow, you just saved a couple of months of development time because you went and figured out, you could see that data and whatnot.
Yeah.
People go for efficiency before effectiveness. My philosophy in life is effective first, efficient second.
Yeah. Yep.
Amen. That is a great point. We've got to be delivering effective solutions that solve business needs and challenges. We cannot be harping on the most efficient path if we don't first have that value. That is so key. And I just want to do a quick shout out. Hey, Arun, how you doing? Thanks for joining us today. I don't know if he's there or not, but he watches sometimes.
I'm like looking at the check. Wait, how does he know?
He might be there.
Then I realized what you were doing.
Oh, he
Someone
could be
might
there. You don't know.
forward to him now.
What's that?
Someone now might forward it to him now. His co-pilot is like, he got tagged.
Yeah.
He listens every so often. We do know that much. So
yes, yeah. And I do know that this is a big topic for him, right? Like while he engages directly with large enterprises, I mean, because he's still a mortal individual who only has 24 hours in his day, and so he spends a lot of time with the large enterprises. That doesn't mean he's not leveraging all sorts of other resources to make sure that this solution meets the needs of the small business as well. And
I'll say a little bit differently, Chris.
Yeah.
For small, medium-sized, mid-market, Fabric does a better job than it does in the large enterprises.
Yeah,
it is production ready, good to go. Like, it solved 100% of the problem. Large enterprises, Fabric might not be all the way there from a competitive landscape perspective,
You
I don't
bet.
think you have an option in like SMB, mid-market, billion, less than $1 billion, $2 billion. I don't think people have option. All road
Yeah.
leads to Fabric for them.
Well, and you mentioned vendor lock-in at the beginning, right? But those very big companies, more than likely, they're doing something with Databricks today, or they're doing something with Snowflake today, right?
Mhm.
And so, they're not just going to be able to pick up and move over to Fabric very easily. It doesn't mean that they may not introduce Fabric and start slowly seeing how that could benefit them. But I fully agree with you. An SMB company can pivot a whole lot faster because most of them probably aren't doing something with Snowflake or Databricks, right? But
Well,
they,
and a lot of SMBs are still running on that SQL Server 2008 that guy installed in 2012, and it's been running on that box, and it's not supported anymore. But
no,
dear
they're
God, I hope that thing doesn't go down, because all of their operations run off of that thing. And they've looked at the other solutions, and it's too much of a lift for them.
yeah,
They just can't make that transition.
yeah, or they're running on that MS Access database that they put on a shared computer
Mhm.
somewhere
Yeah.
and never turn off.
Right. And every other path has been a no-go, because as
Hmm.
Khalid said, oh, it's going to take me 2 months of paying a consultant
Yeah.
just to get to day one of development. They're out right off the bat, right?
Hmm.
Think about it this way. I'll tell you two bits of my own story,
Hmm.
right? One, people have a lot of thing about why Power BI is not getting enough attention, right? So Power BI has been developing and whatnot, but I personally, as a CDO, moved out of Synapse and went to Snowflake
Mm.
Yeah.
because that thing was impossible for me to scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Fabric was there, I wouldn't have done that. So, like, from a economics perspective, for Microsoft to focus on Fabric is absolutely the right thing to do,
Yeah.
right? Because it just creates that perspective. And in reality, I think this will democratize, because like when Data Mart came out, I was really excited that it's going to democratize data warehouse. But now Fabric is just going to democratize the entire process of data,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and so I want to make a case that not only is Fabric ideal for SMBs, but Fabric is ideal for large enterprises who want individual teams or business units to have a small business
Hmm.
mentality when it comes to taking on issues, solving challenges, and being out there and being very agile and nimble, and not and trying to free them from the bloat of an enterprise, because a lot of big companies
Yep.
recognize that, hey, we've got this huge bloat and this inefficiency that exists at a large enterprise scale, because when we talk about like big processes doing big things, yes, you want to put governance. Yes, you have to start with optimization, right? You have to start with these things, but that's challenging for individual teams or departments that are trying to move quickly to address things that are going on in the market. Fabric is perfect to go hand in hand with those solutions.
I agree with you 100%. So the difference between large and mid is that large enterprises, the option
Hmm.
might be Databricks and Snowflake and Fabric.
Hmm.
Right, right.
For mid market, is just Fabric, right? So I
Yeah.
think from that perspective, we are actually seeing the deployment pattern already that Chris mentioned, right?
Hmm.
Because if you want to unleash your business users, the
Yep.
best serving layer is Fabric. Just use Snowflake, mirror the data. Use
Right.
Yeah.
Databricks, shortcut the data.
Yep.
Well, and what I'm hearing is people that are in the big enterprise world where they're having success with Fabric is at the department level,
Yep.
right? And if you think about it as a department level, some of these companies run their departments as they're all little companies, right? And
Yep.
Correct.
so they kind of fall into our high level definition of an SMB. Just at they're a,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so they're getting value out of it. And I'm hearing those stories. I'm not directly involved in it, but it falls into everything that we're talking about.
Well, and
That's
I've done network audits for like the number of SQL servers that are running on like somebody's desktop. right? And you have to like audit network traffic to see who's where ODBC connect. Like you have to do some crazy stuff to find all these things. Well, okay, so now in a large enterprise, you uncover, oh, look, we've got 1,400 SQL servers running out in someone's crazy desktop or whatever it is. Fabric is an awesome way for you to rapidly span and like, okay, migrate off those desktops, get it into a cloud, get it into a shared compute space, get it so that we at least have line of sight into those resources and we're not subject to, oh crap, Tom went on vacation and someone accidentally powered off Tom's desktop.
Yeah.
And now our production facility, our line went down because our quality control that was integrated into our manufacturing line, we didn't realize that had a direct loop into Tom's SQL server to test for quality parameters because Tom manages that as that QA manager, right?
Yeah.
Like, whoopsies, now we lost millions of dollars because Tom went on vacation. And like that's
who approved that vacation?
What's that?
Who approved that vacation for Tom?
Right. Well,
that was problem number one. He should have never had a vacation approved until he fixed this problem.
Yeah.
I think I never really thought about it that way, but Kevin, but I guess we're already implementing that. What Kevin mentioned, I just didn't really. The light bulb just went off for me. Right? The reason I say that, I actually have a finance background, right? So a lot of the time I'm working with finance departments, CFOs, and whatnot because I understand that exact lingo, right? In large corporation, we're doing Fabric in a department level. So even for large organization, you have multiple SMBs built into every single large enterprise. So again, Fabric becomes the only choice for those scenarios.
Yeah. And it seems like in those implementations, what kind of gets political is the IT department owning overall Fabric, right? Or at least the first thing of whoever became the Power BI / Fabric admin, right? And then delegating the right roles to the departments to be able to do what they're doing. If you're being successful with it, then it sounds like, some of those things that the companies have figured it out, right? But that's the other challenges that I hear from people is, well, but they won't spin up a capacity for me, or they won't do this, so.
That's kind of the advantage of working with finance departments.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. Have a little bit of weight to push things around.
I've heard that line a whole bunch. Well, if finance says it's okay to spend that money.
Finance and sales. Those are the two departments where if they come in and say something needs to happen, those things happen. And you can't do without either, right? But yeah, I think it's a fantastic operation, regardless of the size of your company, regardless of what you're doing. Fabric is the be all end all for like these solutions. And can we articulate? And I think we can all articulate solutions that are not ready for Fabric today, or like Kevin said, if I've been running on Snowflake for the last 8 years or Databricks for the last 8 years, and I've got, I'm a Fortune 100 company and I've got 20 petabytes of data that I'm managing in these environments. Holy cow, you're not ready for us. Don't switch right yet to Fabric, right? It's not.
You try Fabric though.
Yeah, but try it.
Mirror the data and unleash the business users.
It's both. It's keep your enterprise assets in Snowflake or Databricks. And as you said, unleash your business users, unleash your departments with Fabric and that mirror capabilities. So.
Yeah. And you might just be surprised, right? Like a lot of times we kind of think of it, I worked in central IT for the longest time, right? I think there's a prejudice of people going, well, wait, the business users aren't that technical. They don't know. And then all of a sudden you start giving them access to some things and they come up with some very creative and efficient solutions. Not all the ones that when I say creative, sometimes people come up with really weird, inefficient ones, but I have been more impressed as you kind of let the business users go. They know a whole lot more than you think. And we brought this up a few episodes ago. How many universities are teaching Python? And so the people that are going into business maybe even into finance and everything, the ones that they're hiring. I know one that I could think of specifically was in HR, right? And he knew a lot about what was going on. He understood Git and everything else, and was asking for all those things. Give them a little bit, and see where they go. They'll surprise you.
Yeah.
The world is different, right? So I mean, I was
Mhm.
tinkering with operator, right? That damn thing booked my ticket, right? Soon as we're gonna get something like operator on Fabric, I'm guessing sooner or later, that thing will do it for me. So the thing
Right.
is, the business user know what problem you're trying to solve.
It's called data activator, I believe.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called now?
No, the data activator is more of the action side. So it's like a watcher. It's watching your data and trigger. So essentially, if my cash falls below this, inventory follows this, right? Do this.
Just
But I'm
wait,
guessing
though.
it's gonna be an iteration of a co-pilot that's gonna be like this is a.
Well,
I
isn't
don't
everything
know,
Copilot now?
calling it
Yeah.
Clippy, but
Everything was Power for a while. Now
Everything's
everything's a Copilot. We'll just call it Copilot.
but again, think about this, right? Business users are a lot more powerful because they know what the end solution looks like, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes the biggest advantage I had coming from the data, because let's put it this way, with 15% of the budget of the IT team that has to bring in one system data, but I brought in 11 systems,
Mm-hmm.
I killed the project in 3 months and
Right.
didn't even spend half that money.
Yeah, that is so true. Like IT knows pipelines, they know the technology side of the house, but they can't inherently just look at the data and tell if it's good or bad, or oh, I've got a huge problem with this, or oh no, I have, IT doesn't know if it should be ABC or CBA, right? They just inherently don't know those things unless someone tells them that. And there's so many business rules. And I mean, it's been over a decade since waterfall development was the standard, where we'd have business analysts spend 3 years designing and documenting something before IT would be involved, and write a singular line of code or have a singular meeting. We don't do that anymore, right?
For good reason. I mean, I've lived through that for good reason.
Right.
Yeah.
That sucked. But that just means we need to be enabling these business users to go in and do more. And
Yeah.
with more business professionals coming out of school knowing Python, I mean, it's the first time I had a business user, a business analyst, who sat down and asked me where they could run a Python notebook was 10 years ago. This is a standard thing. We have a massive influx of workers out there who need these capabilities, that if we don't provide them something, they're going to go and they're going to find their own way to do it. And that's where Fabric comes in, and it gives you a safe and secure place to do that. And
Yep. And it's just there, because I've run into things where, people have solved something running Python code right over on their own machine or whatever. And then I'd say, well, how are we going to productionalize this, right? What resources in Azure do we need to stand up, or whatever, right? Where do we need to stand this all up? And it would kind of fall flat, even though they had it. Now in Fabric, it's just a matter of, hey, let's bring it in.
So think about this, like the Tom went on vacation, nobody approved his vacation. What happens when he quits?
Exactly, right?
Right.
Because as soon as you called him back from that vacation, he's quitting.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And then he quits, and IT by policy wipes his laptop clean because they have a policy to do that. And now you've lost that notebook or database or wherever the heck was running on it forever. You're in deep trouble. And I've seen companies lose $10 million worth of intellectual property because they themselves killed it.
I ran in to a bunch of that during the pandemic, right? Where people either left or they had to reduce down or whatever, and then they're coming back to me, going, "Hey, why doesn't this report run?" And I'm start digging into it. I'm like, "Oh, I could see that this person put a personal gateway on their computer because there was no controls at this company. The data that he was feeding in with, we figured out, because I talked to him before and I knew some of the stuff that he was doing. he just was building it on his laptop and sending it in. It's like, well, now we gotta, if you really want that report, we gotta figure out how to re-engineer it. So
Yep.
wow, we're hitting time. So
Yep. So before we go, we're going to do one last little thing, and just because we are going to be we're all going to FabCon, and we are going to be doing a best day ever day at FabCon. So if you want to be part of it, click on the link, order your T-shirt. It takes a significant period of time for it to get there, so don't delay. Order it now. Be part of the best day ever movement at FabCon, so everybody can see how much we love working with these tools and capabilities. But we'll all be there. We're excited to see you guys. Khaled, we're gonna give you the last words to the audience before we cut out.
I think it's amazing technology, but the technology is not going to fix your business problem. Now, technology is out of the factor. The technology is not holding you back. This technology, whether you're in SMB, mid-market, and whatnot, especially in SMB and mid-market, because you tend to be the judge, jury, and the executioner, start. The cost of starting is very little, and you'll be amazed by what problem it solves for you.
That's a great way to go out.
Yep.
Start. Just start. Awesome. Thank you, Khaled. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you to everybody who's joined us online, in the chat, everyone who's over on LinkedIn, X, wherever you're at watching this. Thank you guys so much for being part of this live stream. We really appreciate it. We love ending our week with you guys, and we look forward to seeing you guys again. Have the best day ever. Peace.
Peace.
Cheers.
Philly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.